Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world one book at a time.
This episode uses the film Inception as a case study to examine how belief systems are engineered and sustained through architecture, emotional coherence, and narrative closure.
Okay, hold on. I have to jump in right there. You said one book at a time, which, is our tagline.
It is, yes.
But I'm looking at the desk here, and this is definitely not a book. This is a very scratched-up Blu-ray case for Christopher Nolan's Inception.
It is a slight deviation from the usual format.
A slight deviation. I mean, we usually have these stacks of, dense theory, sociology texts. This is a blockbuster. Leonardo DiCaprio, explosions, folding cities. Are we becoming a movie podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Because I have some very strong opinions about the sound mixing, but I'm pretty sure that's not why we're here.
We are definitely not becoming a movie podcast.
Okay, good.
We aren't here to review it. We're not going to debate plot holes. And we are absolutely 100% not going to have the millionth argument about whether the top falls at the end. Oh, thank goodness. I think the internet has that covered.
I think so.
Yeah.
No, the reason this movie's on the table is because, for our purposes today, it isn't a movie.
It's not a movie. What is it?
It's a diagnostic model. It's a blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
We're treating Inception as a case study that unpacks a really central systemic question, a question that's at the heart of almost everything we look at on this channel.
And that question would be,
how do you make someone believe something so deeply that they think it was their own idea?
mm-hmm.
How do you install a belief that feels completely self-generated, completely authentic, without using any force at all? Because, if you can figure that out, you don't need an army. You don't need a police state.
You just need good design.
You just need good architecture. And that's why this film is, frankly, a perfect and pretty terrifying text for us. It lays out the mechanics of what the source material calls cognitive governance.
Cognitive governance, that sounds clinical. Chilling.
It is. The film basically gives us a blueprint. It shows that for a belief to effectively govern someone's behavior, it doesn't need to be true.
Right.
It doesn't need to be factual. It doesn't need to be good or moral. It just needs to satisfy three conditions.
Yeah.
One, it has to be internally coherent.
It has to make sense within its own little bubble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Two, it has to be emotionally satisfying. It has to scratch an itch. And three, it has to be structured in a way that makes it really, really hard to get rid of.
I just want to pause on that.
Mm-hmm.
Internally coherent and emotionally satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
The word true is nowhere on that list.
Truth is a liability in this kind of system. Truth is messy, it's complicated, it's often really unsatisfying, but a design belief, it can be perfect, it can be clean. And this matters because we're not just talking about a sci-fi heist. We're talking about ideology, about misinformation, about the narratives you swim in every single day without even noticing.
So, just to set the table for everyone listening.
Yeah.
This isn't a review. This is an autopsy. We're taking the engine apart to see how it works.
Exactly. We're ignoring the Hollywood chrome and looking at the wiring underneath. Okay, let's pop the hood then. The movie's premise is a heist, but they're not stealing money. In this case, they're planting an idea. But before they can do that, they spend a lot of time talking about the environment, the dream levels.
Right. And that's our first big pillar, architecture as governance.
When I think of the architecture in the movie, my mind immediately goes to the special effects. Paris folding in on itself, the impossible staircases.
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying it's more than just cool visuals.
Much more. It has a specific function. Think about that scene where Cobb is recruiting Ariadne, the architect. It's one of the most important scenes in the whole film.
The exploding cafe scene.
Right. But before all the slow-motion explosions, listen to what he tells her. He says she has to design the world. She creates the maze, the subject, the mark, then populates that maze with their subconscious.
So she builds the rooms, and the subject brings all the furniture.
And the ghosts. And the memories. And the expectations. The key is, the architect's job is to design the constraints. This is so crucial. The design of the environment happens long before the idea is even introduced. You have to control the space before you can plant the seed.
So a dream level isn't just a setting, like a backdrop in a play. It's a set of rules.
It is a governance environment.
Yeah.
Exactly. Look at how the mission is structured. They go down 3 levels, right? The rainy city, the hotel, the snowy mountain fortress.
Yeah.
With each level they go down, what happens to that environment?
It gets more specific, more focused.
And more constrained. Level 1, you've got a whole city. Level 2, you're stuck in a hotel. Level 3, you're in one specific building. The deeper you go into the system, the more the architecture restricts your perception and narrows down your available choices.
It's like a funnel. At the top, you feel like you have total freedom. I can go anywhere in this city. But by the time you're 3 layers deep, your only real choice is, okay, I guess I'll walk into this one room.
And that is the absolute essence of governance by design. Whoever designs the maze controls the range of possible conclusions. We talk about it as a flow. Structure creates an incentive, which shapes your perception, which then drives your behavior.
Can you give me a real-world example? I mean, most of us aren't infiltrating a dream fortress on a Tuesday.
Think of a casino.
Okay.
That is a perfectly designed governance environment. There are no clocks on the wall. There are no windows. The carpets have these jarring patterns to keep you from getting too relaxed. The layout is a maze designed to make it hard to find the exit, but incredibly easy to find another blackjack table.
Right. The architecture itself is telling you what to do.
It's governing your behavior. You feel like you're choosing to play another hand, but the system has systematically removed all the external cues, like sunlight or the time, that would normally tell your brain, hey, maybe it's time to go home.
Or a social media feed. That's a digital architecture.
That's a perfect example. The infinite scroll is a structural choice. It's designed to remove what's called a stopping cue.
They stopping?
Yeah. In a book or a magazine, you get to the bottom of the page. That's a stopping cue. The physical structure tells you you've reached an end. But on an app like TikTok or Instagram, the architecture is designed to say, there is no end. There is always more.
And that structure creates the incentive to just keep swiping.
Which shapes your perception into, I might miss something important, which drives the behavior of, losing 3 hours of your life.
And just like in the movie, the person scrolling feels like they're in complete control. I'm choosing to watch this video.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to like this post.
That's what we call the illusion of agency. In Inception, the target, Robert Fisher, thinks he's fighting back the whole time. His subconscious projections are shooting at the team, and he thinks he's the one in control, that he's resisting.
But the team wants him to resist. They planned on it. His resistance is part of their plan.
Exactly. They use his own defenses to herd him exactly where they want him to go. He thinks he's a secret agent fighting for his life. But he's really just a rat in a maze who's been tricked into thinking the walls are his own idea.
That's incredibly cynical.
So you're saying our sense of free will is just an aesthetic. It's just a feeling they let us have.
In a well-designed system, yes. The agency is preserved as a feeling, an aesthetic, so you don't rebel, you feel free. But structurally, you're on a single track. The outcome was rigged from the start. Fisher only has one path to walk, but because he believes he's walking it himself, the idea will stick. If they just dragged him into the room, his mind would reject it.
It has to feel like his own choice.
It has to. It reminds me of those little training mazes Ariadne draws on paper for Cobb. It starts as a game,
Yeah.
but it's really about conditioning. It's about getting used to the walls. If you walk through the same maze enough times, you stop questioning the walls. They just feel like a natural part of the world. You forget someone built them.
Okay, so step one of the system is to build a maze that constrains choice but preserves the feeling of freedom. Once you've got your subject in the maze, then you can introduce the payload, the idea.
The parasite. Let's talk about that. This is our first big quote from the film. It's Cobb explaining what he does for a living. And he doesn't talk about it like it's an art form. He talks about it like it's a disease.
It's a very specific and very dark biological metaphor he uses.
He says, what is the most resilient parasite? Bacteria. A virus. An intestinal worm. An idea. Resilient.
Oh, okay.
Highly contagious. Once an idea has taken hold of the brain, it's almost impossible to eradicate.
Just pause on those words, resilient, contagious.
Impossible to eradicate. He's framing a thought as an infection, something that gets inside you and doesn't leave.
And that reveals the entire operating principle of how ideas work in this model. They're treated like living things with one biological imperative. What does a virus want to do?
Survive and replicate.
Right. Does a virus care about truth? Does it care about facts? No, it just wants to spread. And that is the insight here. Ideas don't survive because they're true. They survive because they are good at surviving. They find a host, they embed themselves, and they reproduce.
That really runs counter to how we like to think of ourselves,
Yeah.
We think we're these rational beings who choose our beliefs based on evidence. You're saying, no, you believe what you believe because that particular idea was a successful parasite.
It successfully offered you something in return for hosting it. A biological parasite just takes, but for a cognitive parasite to really latch on, it usually has to offer some kind of benefit. It offers you a sense of meaning, it gives you an identity, it offers relief from the stress of
So
uncertainty.
if I'm feeling angry or confused
Yeah.
and some idea comes along, say a conspiracy theory,
And that theory tells you you're not confused, you're enlightened. You see the secret truth. And the reason your life is hard isn't your fault. It's the fault of this secret group of powerful people.
that idea feels like a relief.
Yeah.
It solves an emotional problem.
It feels like a cure, but it's a parasite. It gives you an enemy. It gives you an identity as a truth teller. It gives you a community of other people who believe it. And because it solves all those emotional problems, you don't just accept it, you welcome it. You lower your intellectual immune system.
And once it's in, it's almost impossible to get out. Because to get rid of the idea, you have to go back to feeling confused and alone again.
You'd have to kill the part of yourself that found comfort in the lie. This is why debunking misinformation is so difficult. We throw facts at people, but the facts aren't the point.
The facts are irrelevant.
Right. You're attacking the factual basis of the virus, but the virus isn't latched onto facts. It's latched onto a feeling of belonging, a feeling of certainty. That's why the false story spreads, not because it's accurate, but because it's resilient.
And if someone attacks my belief, I don't see it as a helpful correction. I see it as a personal attack on my identity. So I defend the parasite.
You defend the parasite, and the parasite gets stronger. It thrives on being attacked.
Okay, so we have the architecture, which is the maze,
Right.
and the parasite, which is the idea. And you said earlier, these things operate in a feedback loop. Let's map that system out.
Yeah, let's visualize the engine that runs this whole thing.
Lay it out for us. Who are the actors in this system?
First, you have the designers. In the film, that's the heist team Cobb, Ariadne. In our world, that's media architects, political strategists, the people who design the algorithms.
Okay. Then you have the subject.
The Mark, Robert Fisher in the movie.
Yeah.
For us, it's anyone consuming the information.
And what's the third actor?
This one's important. It's the internalized authorities. In the film, they show up as projections. You know, those guys with guns who are Fisher's militarized subconscious.
Right. They're not consciously controlled by him. They're just his automatic defenses.
And in our own minds, those are our biases, our cognitive dissonance. They are the automatic mental guards that jump out and attack any idea that threatens our established worldview.
Okay, so we have the actors. What's the cycle? How does the loop work?
Okay, step one. The design environment constrains your perception. You're in the maze. You only see the paths the architect built for you.
Step two.
The idea is then introduced in a way that makes it feel self-generated. You stumble upon it. You feel like you discovered it.
Step three.
Emotional coherence stabilizes it. The idea feels good. It fits with your trauma, your desires, your identity. It clicks.
And step four.
Narrative closure rewards you for adopting it. You get that little dopamine hit of certainty, of having an answer. The story is complete.
And that's where the loop closes on itself.
Because once you have that feeling of closure, you stop reality testing. Why would you check the facts? The story feels finished. When you stop checking, the maze gets stronger, which reinforces the idea, which deepens the emotional coherence, and on it goes.
It's a self-sustaining system. And in the movie, the only way to break out of it is a kick. A violent physical shock, like the van driving off the bridge.
And think how hard that is. They have to time it perfectly across multiple layers of reality. In the real world, kicking someone out of an ideological feedback loop is just as traumatic. It's not something a polite conversation can usually fix. It often takes a major life crisis.
There's one component here that feels like the linchpin of the whole system. The emotional core. The anchor. And in this film, that's Mal.
We have to talk about Mal.
Right. Marion Cotillard's character. In a normal movie analysis, she's the tragic dead wife. She's the hero's motivation. But in a systems analysis, she's not motivation. She's infrastructure.
She's the absolute load-bearing wall of Cobb's entire psyche. She's not just a memory. She is unresolved trauma personified. And the film makes this really sophisticated point. The system doesn't try to heal trauma. It uses trauma. It builds narratives around it.
Trauma as infrastructure. That's a powerful phrase.
Well, look at how Mal functions. She shows up at the worst possible moments to sabotage the mission. She's the living embodiment of Cobb's guilt and regret.
But then look at how the team uses that same principle on their target, Fisher. They don't try to persuade him with business logic. They don't give him a PowerPoint about market diversification.
No, absolutely not. They build a story around his deepest, most painful, emotional vulnerability. his relationship with his dying father.
They weaponize his daddy issues.
Completely. They construct this elaborate dream where he gets to have one last conversation with his father and discovers a childhood pinwheel in a safe. They anchor the idea they want to plant, I must break up my father's empire, to the powerful emotional catharsis of, my father actually loved me after all.
And that's the key, isn't it? A belief that's tied to your emotional survival becomes non-negotiable.
It becomes untouchable. If believing this lie is the only way I can feel loved or safe or vindicated, I will defend that lie with my life. The choice between accept the facts and feel the pain versus accept the comforting lie. Our brains are wired to choose comfort. It's a survival mechanism.
And Mal is the flip side of that. She's the immune system that has gone haywire.
She's the ultimate internalized authority. Cobb knows she isn't real. He says it over and over. You are just a shade.
But knowing that doesn't stop her from stabbing Ariadne or shooting Fisher. His rational knowledge is useless against her emotional power.
Because she represents the terrifying power of an internal narrative to completely override external evidence. This is why you can show a person a mountain of data that contradicts their belief and they'll just shrug. Their internal mal, their emotional anchor, is more real to them than the facts you're showing them.
The projection defense. My mind attacks the foreign idea to protect my emotional core.
Which brings us to the actual moment of decision, the sales pitch, the way the system gets you to finally surrender. The film gives us a very potent, very romantic-sounding phrase for it.
The leap of faith.
The leap of faith.
Yeah, that's our second quote. It's the closing line of the deal. It's the final ultimatum.
It's the con man's final trick.
The line is, do you want to take a leap of faith or become an old man filled with regret, waiting to die alone?
Okay, let's strip all the beautiful cinematography and music away from that line and just look at the raw mechanics of the choice being offered.
It's a false dichotomy, a loaded choice. Option A, blind faith, adventure, hope. Option B, loneliness, regret, death.
The system masterfully frames the act of surrendering to the belief, the leap, as an act of courage. It's romantic, it's brave.
While the alternative, being skeptical, asking for more evidence, taking a moment to think, is framed as cowardice. It's framed as weakness, as a failure.
This is such a powerful manipulation tactic, and you see it everywhere once you start looking for it. Are you with us or are you against us? Get on the right side of history. Skepticism is reframed as cynicism. Critical thinking is reframed as analysis paralysis.
Don't be the old man filled with regret.
Exactly. The system pathologizes doubt. It makes you feel that the only strong, virtuous thing to do is to stop asking questions and just believe.
I see this constantly in political movements. You're expected to accept the entire platform without question. The moment you say, well, I agree with point one, but I have some concerns about point two, you're not seen as a thoughtful person. You're seen as a traitor. You don't have enough faith.
And that fear of being the old man dying alone. I mean, that's the fear of being exiled from the tribe. It's one of our most primal fears. So what do? We take the leap. We surrender our critical faculties, not because we're convinced by the evidence, but because we're terrified of the social consequences of not believing.
So the leap of faith isn't an act of courage. It's an act of submission that has been brilliantly rebranded as courage.
That's the trick, making compliance feel like rebellion.
Okay, so the maze is built. The parasite is planted. It's anchored with trauma. Acceptance has been framed as a brave leap of faith. But what about the fail-safe? Why can't we just check? Look at the evidence.
Now we have to talk about the totems.
The spinning top, the loaded die, the poker chip. These are the little objects the characters carry to check if they're in a dream.
They're personal reality testing devices. The idea is that only you know its exact weight and feel, so in someone else's dream, it won't be quite right.
In our systems analysis, a totem is the fact check. It's the raw data. It's the independent verification.
Yes. But what does the film show us about totems? Do they work?
Well, no, not really. Or, more accurately, people just stop using them.
Think about Cobb. He knows he's in a dream when he's visiting memories of his children. He knows it's not real. Does he pull out the top to check?
No. He just wants to see their faces. He doesn't want the reminder.
And Mal literally locks her totem away in a safe. This is the central diagnostic of the whole film. Coherence over verification.
Which means, if the story feels right, I stop checking if it's true.
Precisely. If the dream is good enough, if the emotional payoff is high enough, the brain stops asking, is this real? Internal consistency, does this narrative make sense on its own terms, becomes more important than external validation.
The film also has that time dilation element. 5 minutes on one level is an hour on the next, and 10 years on the one after that.
And that maps perfectly to belief entrenchment. If you spend years inside an ideological echo chamber, that dream stops feeling like a dream. It just feels like reality. It's your life. It's your history.
And to question it after all that time would be to admit you wasted a huge part of your life. The sunk cost is too high.
Way too high. Which brings us to our final quote. This is the one that really explains why people choose to stay asleep. It's Cobb explaining what happened to Mal in limbo.
Right. They were down there for what felt like 50 years. They built an entire world. And she fell in love with the dream.
She didn't just forget it was a dream. It was more active than that.
Cobb says, she locked away a secret deep inside herself, something she once knew to be true, but chose to forget.
Chose to forget. That's the whole mechanism right there.
She put her totem, her reality check, in a vault and threw away the key.
Because she preferred the dream. Reality was imperfect. The dream was perfect. So she actively, consciously chose to disable her own critical thinking.
You know, we often talk about people being duped or fooled by misinformation, but this suggests something much darker. This suggests complicity.
Being fooled makes you sound like a passive victim. Choosing to forget makes you an active participant. And why do we do it? Because verification is hard work. It takes effort. It causes conflict with our friends, our family.
It can be really painful to find out that a belief that gives you comfort is actually false.
So it's easier to just not check, to lock the totem in the safe. We trade the difficult truth for the easy feeling of certainty.
And this brings us to the final turn of the screw. The way the film turns this whole system back on us, the audience,
In the mirror.
the ending. Cobb gets home. He finally sees his kids' faces. It's this incredibly emotional reunion. He puts the top on the table and gives it a spin.
And then he walks away from it. He chooses his kids. He chooses the emotional reality over the verification. He doesn't wait to see if it falls.
But the camera stays on the top. It spins. It wobbles. And then cut to black. End of movie.
Now, think about the reaction in the theater. Or your own reaction. What did you feel in that moment?
Oh, just rage. Frustration. I needed to know. Does it fall or not?
And that reaction right there is proof that the system works on us too. In that moment, we become the marks.
How so?
Because we desperately crave narrative closure. Cobb made his choice. He was at peace with the ambiguity. But we, the audience, couldn't handle it. We demanded an answer. We wanted the story to be neatly tied up with a bow.
I wanted the certainty.
And that desire for a simple, clean ending is the primary vulnerability the entire system exploits. We are so allergic to ambiguity that we will accept a false narrative as long as it gives us that feeling of closure. The endless debate about whether the ending is real is a total distraction. It misses the point.
Which is?
The point is that the system worked. It manufactured a question so compelling that we're still arguing about it more than a decade later, instead of analyzing the system that made us care so much in the first place.
Okay, so let's pull back. We've taken the engine apart. We've looked at the architecture, the parasite, the trauma, the failed totems, and the craving for closure. What does this all mean for us today, living in our world?
It means we have to recognize that we are living inside these kinds of designed environments all the time.
That sounds a little dramatic.
I don't think it is. Look at how we adopt our ideologies. We like to think we arrived at our political beliefs through pure reason. But more often than not, we've simply been navigating a carefully designed information maze, a specific news network, a particular set of websites, a certain group of friends that was built to lead us to one inevitable conclusion.
We walk the maze, find the idea waiting for us at the end, and we think, look what I discovered. But the architect put it there for us.
Which is why it's so difficult to have productive conversations across political divides. You're not just arguing with a person's opinion, you're arguing with the entire architecture of their reality. The dream rules are different.
And our media environments are designed to reward coherence over verification.
The algorithm knows that giving you content that confirms your biases will keep you engaged. It knows that making you question things might cause you to navigate away to go check a source. And it can't have that. So the architecture is financially incentivized to feed you things that feel true, not necessarily things that are true.
And it's really important to say here, this isn't about blaming people. This is not us saying, you're stupid for falling for this.
Absolutely not. This is not a moral failure. It's a structural one. Our brains are hardwired to seek patterns, to seek safety in the tribe. The system isn't exploiting a bug in our cognition, it's exploiting a feature.
We're all wired to avoid being the old man filled with regret.
We are all wired to take the leap of faith.
And this ties directly back into what we're always trying to do here At Crisis in Perception, it's about looking at the system, not just the individual blame.
It is. It's so easy to mock someone for believing a crazy theory online. It's much harder, but so much more important to ask, what is the system that made that crazy theory the most emotionally resonant and coherent option available to them?
Perception is the site of control. That's where the battle is fought.
And this is the really difficult part we have to end on. Awareness isn't always enough.
What do you mean?
You can know you're in an echo chamber. You can be fully aware that you're being manipulated. You can know intellectually that Mal is just a projection of your own guilt.
But if the emotional hook is damp enough,
If the trauma is real enough, knowing you're in a dream doesn't automatically wake you up. You can see the top still spinning on the table and actively choose to look away, because looking at it would mean your whole world has to fall apart. And that's a price most people aren't willing to pay.
So as we wrap this up, the question isn't the one the movie seems to be asking.
Right. For 15 years, the question has been, is the ending real?
But that's the wrong question. It's a distraction.
The real question, the one this diagnostic model leaves us with, is why does certainty feel so necessary even when the truth is completely out of reach?
That's it. If a belief gives you meaning and community and closure, does it even matter if it's true?
And the unsettling answer is that for the system to function, it doesn't. The danger isn't the lie. The danger is coherence without verification.
On that note, we'll leave you to it.
Maybe go check your totems.
This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon.
For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.